Welcome back to New Persuasive Words. I am, as always and ever, Scott Jones.
And I'm Bill Bohr.
Bill, here we are. It's Monday. Our last Monday episode was fantastic.
It was fun.
Just thrilling. I mean, really one for the annals of New Persuasive Words history. Just like episode 154. We might touch on it today. Which I didn't know. I told you, dude, with great interest today. I said, Bill, I Google searched something, and episode 154 was the second hit.
Yeah, we came up. That's nice. It's very nice.
Something that what I feel is of some consequence. So
yeah, I agree.
We got that going for us. Which is nice, like Bill Murray in Caddyshack. The Dalai Lama, big hitter, the Dalai, big hitter.
Yeah.
On his death, so I said, Dali, he's gonna stiff me. I say, hey, Dali, how about a little something for the effort? He said, there will be no money exchanged, but on your deathbed, you'll receive total consciousness. So I got that going for me, which is nice.
That's nice.
Which is nice. Very nice.
Very nice. Yeah.
So here we are. We have Pete Hesgath. Is really he's hitting the job running. I mean, and sober, running and sober.
Well, so far, is he subjected to random drug testing at work? I don't know. Maybe.
No, I think if he's not stumbling and isn't trying to dance with the strippers, they're figuring he's straight. That's something that allegedly happened. They had
as a step in the right direction.
They had to keep him off the stage at a strip club.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
Which, I mean, we've all been there, but not many of us are the defense.
Our defense secretary, right.
It's there you go. Yeah, so this is, we have. There's a lot going on in the world.
There is a lot going on in the world. The beat goes on, as we used to say. Remember,
the beat goes on.
The beat goes on. I think that's a comeback. I think that was. It was during the Trump years. What was one of the things we said? Well, we're back
that would be back in the 140s.
Yeah,
when Trump started. I don't know when that was. When Trump started, we were one something.
I don't know. I don't remember either. It was yeah. I don't even remember the good stuff we said. Let alone the dark days. But the dark days are back.
Yeah, it's like, but sometimes the best, like, you think of the original Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah.
The Empire Strikes Back was the best film.
It was. Yeah, I like that one. Yeah,
I mean, that's where we're at right now.
The Empire Strikes Back.
What if you were frozen in carbonite by the end?
That is an option, right?
I'm running around, one of our Methodist podcasters comes and helps us, seemingly betrayed us, and comes and helps us get you from Jabba the Hutt.
There we go. That would be nice. Yeah. That would be. Yeah, that was a fun one. That was a fun comeback. Yeah.
Yeah. So here we are.
So you wrote something today, which I thought was good.
Thank you.
Share with us what it was.
My Substack, which this is a thing that I'm late on the train, but everybody's Substacking right now. But Substack, if you don't use it, is it's basically a blogging platform, but it's got a lot of bells and whistles. It's free.
Yeah.
And it gives you all sorts of links to share places and has some nice AI. So it summarizes your piece when it promotes it. And it does some interesting things. And it gets you can connect it to a funding source and people can pay you to subscribe, all this kind of stuff. So I don't know why I'm promoting Substack, but there you go. So I'm trying to do a little more writing because I think it's a disciplined way to express yourself. And I was thinking about repugnance and it's because, I spend way too much time on a social audio platform called Clubhouse, which is really, it makes cable news look like the School of Athens sometimes. I mean, it's just, but the virtue of it, I suppose, is I can hear voices from all over the country, all over the world.
Right.
that are just normal people. When
Well, you've met some pretty extraordinary people too.
I've met some. I have some great friends become like lifelong friends from it. But look, if the war's going on in Israel, you can just talk to people and tell people what's going on. Say, we went to the nightclub and saw 3 rockets. You can do the same.
I know. No, that's yeah. We're in the bomb shelter. We're in the bomb shelter during the day, but tonight we are having drinks.
Yeah, exactly. Drinks and hummus. But I do get to talk with folks from all over the place, and all over the world, and all over the place ideologically, right? So if something, when the infamous alleged Nazi salute, you have to say alleged because he's not been convicted, but it's it is the memes. What the thing is? He's really this Nazi meme, the Nazi salute or alleged Nazi salute has displaced Luigi.
Well, did you see
what Sam on the internet?
Did you see Sam Harris's interview about it? What he thinks has happened to Elon Musk? He says he thinks he's just become social media brain. There's kind of this new condition that has just fried his brain. He's so obsessed with social media, and that it's kind of just taken over. And he so much so he bought Twitter and ran it into the ground. And now that's kind of his whole. It's like one of those sci-fi movies where he's kind of he's been taken into the screen, right, in some very real ways. And it's kind of an interesting thing to think about, right? What was not that he was ever the most stable genius out there.
We know who was the most.
Someone says that one already.
We've elected.
I do think what unless he's developed an addiction or something. I don't know. But what is this kind of what's the source of this kind of crazy behavior? Power is intoxicating. So you're the richest man in the world, and now you are the you're the buddy of the most powerful man in the world. That's got to be really intoxicating.
Yeah, you're the buddy, and you're the guest that just won't leave. It's like what about Bob or whatever? Right?
What about Bob?
Will not leave.
That could be the remake. Trump and Elon Musk, and what about Bob Part 2? What about Elon?
Yeah, and then the Biden's post election could be Weekend at Biden's.
Yeah,
people are just wheeling Joe Biden around with the sunglasses on. On Clubhouse, you get to hear people talk ad nauseum about the salute, and you go in Jewish rooms and people are debating, what does it mean and all this stuff. And
it's also the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz today. Is that not? It's kind of fits a sobering backdrop. Yes.
Too soon. Too soon.
Yes. Too soon to be embracing fascism.
But there was a woman who I know, a Jewish woman who she's a therapist, young. I think she's probably all of 30, and very, very smart, very interesting person. And she spends a lot of time in Germany and Israel and all over the place. I think she's based in New York, but she's a globetrotter.
Right.
And she was saying, I don't care. Look, I don't know what he was thinking or whatever, but she said the real issue is the funding of the AFD, and she just got into how bad the AFD is for Jews and some of the things they're trying to do.
People may know what that is.
This is what's the A for?
Right, it's a right-wing German political party.
Something for Deutschland. What's the A? I forget what the A stands for, but A+. AAA fitness. But it's a party. The AFD is a party that's very right wing, very anti-immigration, and they're not friends of the Jews.
No,
they're for banning circumcision and
right. Well,
other things.
And the cover for this is they're anti. Their justifications are anti-extremist Islamic extremists. That's kind of that's the whole cover for all these right-wing movements, and they're anti-immigrants, but particularly anti-Islamic in their that's kind of why they probably one of the chief reasons they are having appeal, just as we said, whether or not how big of a problem the illegal immigration in this country is, people are certainly allowing there to be a lack of due process, right? People voted for it, and people seem to be okay. What's one thing that's funny is if immigrants are such a tax on our country, how come they're being arrested at their workplaces?
right.
They're all being arrested while they're working, right? Yeah. So
yeah, I remember what Trump said about due process in the 2016 primaries. They were talking about gun control, and they were talking about trying to, what do we do with all these guns? And several of the candidates on stage who were gun rights advocates said, look, you have to give people due process. You can't just run. And Trump says, I think you get the guns first, then you give them the due process. Okay. So that. I mean, nobody ever accused the guy of being a constitutional scholar. No. So there you go. No, but I mean, so this woman had me thinking, and I thought the sheer repugnancy of the Nazi salute, which we will never know the intentions at the moment. I mean,
what he was really trying to do, right?
Yeah. But he did his response with the Histler with this and gurgling Gable with this, and
he tried to make a joke of it, right?
Yeah, which is, again, it didn't. I don't think it mitigated things.
No.
But whatever. I mean, like, so it's almost like the repugnancy of this act is talked about more than the AFD and some of the real problems. And then it got me thinking about, well, the AFD is surging because of real problems, right? Islamic extremism is a problem in Europe, and when you have illiberal, you have folks come from illiberal countries that are not used to, that really think blasphemy is a sin. That certain things are,
I think it's a sin too. I just don't think
that's true.
I don't think you are required to enforce the penalty of God for it, though. That's
do you remember in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, when Sean Connery in Indiana Jones, Sean Connery says, "This isn't archaeology. It's a race it's a fight and a race against evil. And if the Nazis win, the forces of darkness will scatter the earth." And Harrison Ford goes, "Jesus Christ, another martyr." He slaps him on the face and says, "That's for blasphemy.
That's for blasphemy. That's for blasphemy." Bears mine for that.
I just want him after that to say, "Raise periscope. He slipped on his cheek." Run, hunt for Red October.
May he rest in peace. Yeah.
What a great actor.
Right. So that's an interesting thing. I mean, isn't that part of, because in this age we live in, everyone gets outraged, right? It was pretty funny. I think SNL a couple of weeks ago did a takeoff on MSNBC, and it was just one outrage after the other. They kept breaking in. They tried to talk about real news, but it kept breaking in on the crazy stuff Trump said. And whether how intentional his craziness is, or if he's crazy like a fox or whatever, everyone, people who are against the outrage happens, but the actual substantive things that they're trying to do is going on even as we speak. So I think it becomes, like you said, it becomes the, it was like, what was that? There was a skit, again, another skit on SNL where the person was talking about, this is the most consequential election of our time. And they started asking him questions. He couldn't answer any of the questions. Right?
It got me thinking about, well, okay, you do have a real problem. And I think that's the whole liberal, illiberal question. And how do you deal with folks coming from that you need for the labor in Europe, right? That they're coming from pre-mod, largely still, they haven't gone through the Enlightenment, at least as the West has experienced it.
They're being displaced because of traumatic. I mean, there's all kinds of.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of complexity about the displacement of. A lot of it has to do with the Iraq War, the Syrian crisis. So there are lots of Libya.
Brings you back to the Princess Bride, Bill. Never get involved in the land war in Asia.
Right? No, so I think there's in the same reason why are there people fleeing South America, Central America. Why are we getting Chinese folks coming through the southern border? What's all of this about? Well, this has been something that, when you have unsafe conditions in your own home, when you have, the drug cartels, lack of economic opportunities, or, you have revolution or displacement, or, you either have to leave the country or die. I mean, all this creates a situation that we're in, but that doesn't mean when they end up landing somewhere that they come without trauma, or they're embracing the ideology of, for instance, the Netherlands. I mean, again, that's probably been a bigger problem. Netherlands is a classic example of this very progressive country that is terrified of there are many people that are terrified of the folks they've left in the country, and if inability to integrate. Of course, then you've also got the legacy of colonialism in the European countries as well. So it is a complex cocktail of the problem of assimilation, whether or not you even want to have assimilation. So it does raise it raises an opportunity for these kind of extremist groups to get traction.
But see, all of the stuff you just said, which you framed so well, like the list of complexities you just rattled off, the repugnancy of the Nazi salute just drowns it all out. You just stop thinking, right? And then you start, like I do every 10 minutes, send you a new Instagram. I used to say, I mean, for our listeners, after about the 14th Luigi thing I sent Bill that I thought was hilarious, he just sends me back a message, "You're obsessed." and now I'm sending you these Nazi.
Now you're sending me the Elon Musk Nazi ones.
Yeah, from Instagram. It's like right from my Instagram to your inbox. But it's the dopamine, the sort of, this is the Jonathan Haidt, right? The righteous mind stuff, right? Where you're just sort of, you tribe up and the more, and the outrage and fall and real, and you stop thinking, right? And so a conversation just brought me back to this T.S. Eliot quote, which then I didn't realize we did.
We talked about.
I was trying to find the date of publication of this essay, and I searched T.S. Eliot essay Revelation, and the second hit was our podcast episode 154. And so it's this essay. It's a really peculiar, and it's a fantastic essay. And if you want, I'll link to our old episode. If you want, we're not going to go into the whole content of the essay, which we did.
But
200 episodes ago.
We are, and we're also aware that T.S. Eliot should have had some inner repugnancy of some of his positions.
Oh yeah, his
attitudes, right?
Of course.
Particularly when it comes to anti-Semitism. But
well, I mean, it's anti-Semitism in the early part of the 20th century wasn't as pronounced because it was so prevalent, right? It was everywhere.
He reflected.
But it's still tragic.
Yeah,
and blameworthy.
Yes,
but so this essay is actually, he was asked to write an introduction to an essay on a book about Christian theology. It's sort of an ecumenical gathering.
Right.
It was one of the IMC or ecumenical gatherings in the 30s, and they brought, like, Bart wrote an essay in this, Bergia, one of the great Eastern Orthodox. I mean, it's
amazing. Yeah.
So they asked this guy who's not a theologian, and he notes that. It's like, look, it's interesting. They just asked me to write something on the topic of Revelation and what it means in the world. The essay is wonderful, but at the end, he's quite critical of what I would say is sort of the correlationist model of apologetics, that let the culture pose the questions and we'll give the answers, which it's sort of the Tillichian kind of approach, which he sees is just nickel and diming, right? Eventually that'll just tell you what you can believe, and you'll put it through the Vegematic, the secular Vegematic, and you'll come out with this, this kind of green gruel of a shake of Christianity that no one wants to drink, which you could call mainline Protestantism today. But then there's this sentence, right? It's just one of these, very crisp. He says, even in the work of Christian apologetic, the assumption is sometimes that of the secular mind. Very simple sentence. And then this is the footnote. For instance, the doctrine of the damnation of unbaptized infants has been commonly rejected in recent times simply because it is repugnant. Right. But the development of the state of mind to which the doctrine is repugnant must itself be examined before we can accept it with confidence. And the question of the repugnance of a doctrine is not the same as that of its truth. This is perhaps the extreme case. Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that's tongue-in-cheek when he says that. But,
right.
But it is obviously very dangerous to rely on a sentiment of recent growth, especially when the higher religious emotions have certainly tended to atrophy or occlusion.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what I take him here saying is like, yeah, look, you can say, look, Augustine's awful. How can this terrible, terrible white guy, he wasn't white, he was North African. He wouldn't have known what white was, but he how could this terrible guy write about the damnation of infants and all this and
right.
and when you know something about the Pelagian controversy, I mean, you see what was at stake,
right?
For Augustine.
He
gets painted into a corner,
right? Also, you're for the most part you're glad that Augustine won. Yes, I mean that's a different podcast.
He's the theological Colonel Jessup. You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. Because deep down, Danny, at places you don't talk about at parties.
Right. No, and I think it's an interesting thing too, because you and I have talked about this before, where suddenly everyone's declared there is substitutionary atonements. That view is no longer valid. We even had somebody on our podcast one time who declared that hell didn't exist.
Oh yeah.
Which wow, it's pretty, but and all these things are based on the sentiments that doesn't, my God would not do that, or I again, and I certainly, have very, similar sensitivities about this stuff, but ultimately it's a reduction of mystery, right? It's also ultimately making whatever your sentiments are the arbitrator of truth, right? And I do like this idea that every theory has some validity to it, because it's it's someone's operation.
Yeah. I mentioned that in the
like
piece. I sort of say, look, Eliot, I couldn't track down where he says this, but it came to me by way of Jeffrey Pearl on a lecture on Eliot, and he said Eliot, said this, like that every theory, there's no such thing as a false theory. Every theory is true from a certain context, no matter how small. He says that's why schizophrenia is less a disorder and more a legitimate philosophical position. Now, again, probably a little tongue in cheek, but what he means there is, to the schizophrenic, that theory seems real. And what I try to say in the piece is like, look, when you see somebody and they're saying something that you think is just so out there, right? Probably the least reflective thing to do, and the thing that's not going to get you to a place of understanding, a place where you'll see broader complexities and more nuanced realities, certainly where you're not going to be persuasive or anything like that, is to say, well, they just say that because they're a racist, or they're too woke, or they're a Marxist, or they're a Trumper, or they're a Trump sycophant, right? And that's what we tend to do. The repugnance of the idea is imputed to the person, and they're repugnant, and then we're not able to do some of the parsing of ideas that you just did a couple of minutes ago, which is really and get into the complexity of the world. And I think that and so Eliot there is saying that look, ideas are doing work for people, and if you're going to seriously engage someone, you're going to need to understand the work the theory is doing. Right. And I think there's a paucity of that. I think a lot of people don't want to understand that, and they just want to write people off as if they're everybody just basically in that mode. Everyone becomes a bad faith actor. Right.
And that's a very dangerous place to be, because then when when we start categorizing people as this, their very existence is repugnant. All right, the very existence of liberals or the very existence of these populists are repugnant. Then it becomes much easier to dehumanize them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you think about, so the repugnancy, right? It's based on kind of it's, if you think about what is the physiological thing that's based on, it's something that is built into us from evolution. Like we react to things like a gag reflex or repugnant. If we see somebody, or we see like blood or something visceral, or we smell something really bad, it probably, unless it's French cheese, something you shouldn't eat, right? and maybe you should be eating but there's these natural
Get your
guardrails.
French cheese now before the tariffs go on it.
I know. I did stock. I am stockpiling tequila right now. So anybody, but no, but there's a sense where it's not an end unto itself. It's to be careful, to be cautious. So for further, exploration, because there might be good reasons, even though the smell is driving you away, you need to go forward. Or, all right, this smells bad or looks bad, but it's actually okay. Or this repugnancy that we're our reaction, there's something dangerous going on underneath, and we need to get to the causes of that, right? So I think those are all really important things. I think the other thing that I've been reminded of is how Christianity, the greatest practitioners of Christianity are often used. The stories are people who walked through the repugnancy, right? Who touched the leper, right? Who, those nuns who kept going back into those, they may be the priest, and maybe the rulers were fleeing the plague, but nuns and monks were going in to care for the sick.
This is in Rodney Stark's book, The Rise of Christianity. He talks about in one of the plagues, right? Like Galen's running out, the physician right of wherever, was it Rome or whatever? Galen's running out, the Christians are running in. Most people, they see Galen running out, you run out too.
Right. Or the Christians gathering the babies that were thrown out, right? The rejected children. They're not. Yeah. And the other thing too, like
I heard Trump tried that with Tiffany. Just left her on the porch for a few days. Look, she'll just like go away. Okay, she's that beautiful. She's not like Ivanka. We'll just maybe like, we take her and Don Jr. Just we try again.
Right. Yeah. So I do think there's a sense where I'm beginning a sermon series on the Sermon on the Mount, and one of the things that strikes me about the upside down kingdom of the gospel is that that you don't accept the world's labels, and often where we're told to flee, the gospel tells us to enter in. The people who are told to reject, the gospel tells us to accept. And I do think there's a sense where there's Jesus said, a light has shined in the darkness, and life has been preached to the dead. And so what does it mean to be alive? What's it mean to look at things in the light? I think it does call us not only to engage with our natural repugnancies, whether they be towards ideas or people, but then at the same time, love the way God loved, love the way Jesus loved, touch the people that Jesus touched, care about the people Jesus cared about, and try to overcome our own natural, or I guess our natural tendency to be repulsed by people and things that we don't like.
Yeah, and I think when Eliot says in that footnote that we can't, our repugnancy must itself be examined. That before we can accept the judgments we render with confidence. I mean, what repugnancy does is offers us. It's an invitation to self-examination, right? What is it? What is it here that creates such a strong reaction in me? What is it blinding, right? Because oftentimes when we say, I remember Tim Keller of blessed memory now. I mean, I remember him preaching a sermon once about where Jesus says, like, you who build on me, you're like the one who builds on solid ground, not, you're not building on the sand. Because when you build on the sand, the wave comes in and, of course, if you're a real estate developer, you build on sand.
Right.
Yeah, build it. But
isn't that what a parable for our age. right. Sand development. Yeah.
I like my Jesus. I like my saviors liking building on sand. Okay, like Mar-a-Lago. But Keller said, what really happens in life's tragedies is you think, wow, I'm not perfect, but I'm like 70% on the rock and maybe 30% on the sand. Right. And then the wave comes in, you're like, oh my gosh, I was 10% on the rock and 90% on the sand.
Right.
And that's what the repugnancy. I mean, you might think, oh my gosh, my moral sensitivity and is so attuned and I'm on the right tribe and all this is everything's hunky-dory. And then you realize, wait, wow, maybe I'm not, I thought I was like, 70% of the rock. Maybe my mind is 70% on the sand, and maybe my tribalism and my sort of snap judgments and my self-interested inquiries and all this sort of self-interested reasoning is kind of being exposed. And look, I'm not saying there aren't really repugnant ideas.
No,
of course, there are, right? I mean, this is
we've mentioned them,
but often. We live to mention those.
Yeah, but the trouble is that you could be you can be attacking the shadow when actually the repugnant core of what's really going on there, the true rot is missed. Yeah, I do think we're living in. I think it's a really important time to realize what we individually do not have control over.
Yes.
And to stop maybe shadow boxing against a lot of stuff we don't have control over. Right. I can't even call my congressman because my congressman agrees with me. So, it's like,
what are you going to do? Call someone else's congressman.
That's a waste of fun. But but I think this is a wonderful opportunity for the community of faith, for the people of God to re-engage in what our job has always been, right? And what did Jesus said? We talked about the other episode. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is near. He gathered people around him. He gathered a community. So be with, regroup with the community of faith, and then he cared for those who were in pain.
I sent this to you the other day. This is an essay. I was kind of cleaning out my documents, and I had a chapter of a book from Joe Small, our friend.
Yes.
He used to be the head of theology and worship, and what a department it was when he was
there. Yep.
The head of it, and now it's been disbanded. But he's talking about the ecclesia and the polis and the relationship. He says Jesus names the church salt and light, ordinary but useful elements in the everyday life of the world. The church is the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how can it be restored? The church is light of the world, but what if the light is hidden under a basket? The ecclesia is salt, a preservative, and a seasoning needed in the polis. But if all the ecclesia has to offer is a somewhat religious version of what the polis already has in abundance, its distinctive flavor is gone. The ecclesia is light, illuminating overlooked possibilities for human life. But if the ecclesia dims its beams so only the possibilities of the polis are visible, both ecclesia and polis may stumble.
Amen.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Be well, everyone.